Well, I'm excited for my little section.
Yeah, I really want to know more because I feel like I haven't seen much about him. I feel like I saw like one random like headline or like article that was basically asking whether or not he's a paid driver.
I'll go into
and
that.
I'm sure you're going to talk about it, but I didn't click on it, so I don't really know what the consensus is. So basically, I know very little.
Yeah, well, okay. First things first. I'm gonna say his name like the Chinese pronunciation because in the videos that I've watched, which there isn't a lot about him on like YouTube and stuff, people I don't know where they come up with these pronunciations. They're like phonetically don't even make sense. But yeah, so his Chinese pronunciation, I'm not sure where the inflections are, and so I'm just taking a guess, but I'm assuming this is what it is. But it should be like Guanyu Zhou, and then I guess the Western pronunciation would probably be like Joe. I guess like almost like Joe, but it's obviously with ZH. But I feel like that's like the most I guess proper way of saying it with a Western in the Western ways. So yeah, I guess I'll just call him Joe just to make it easier for everyone. So
how are they saying it like in the videos?
They were saying it like Zhao. I was like, no, that's definitely not right. But good try.
I'll be curious to see how like the main commentators pronounce his name, if they pronounce it.
Especially his full name, they're like completely butcher it, which understandable. But I'm just here to set the record. So Joe was born on May 30th, 1999 in Shanghai. So he's 22. So one of the younger drivers.
Older than me?
Yeah, by a couple months.
Younger than me?
Yes.
What's a sign?
I don't know. What's May 30th?
I don't know.
And there's not a lot of public information on his parents or their background, but I like wanted to know more. Like I'm super curious about like kind of like the family dynamic that he grew up in. But there's really no public information. It really seems like he's like kept it under wraps, but maybe that'll change once he's kind of thrown into the F1 season and stuff. I feel like it's hard to avoid the press, and it's just a lot more coverage, so maybe we'll learn more about them in the future. But he didn't start karting until he was 8 years old, and I say that like that's late, but it's not. But when he was 5, so before he started karting, he attended the 2005 inaugural Chinese Grand Prix at the Shanghai circuit. He posted a photo of him holding up a Fernando Alonso flag, who won that GP. So I feel like that's just like a cute like full circle moment. Like so many of these young drivers like looked up to these older drivers that have been in F1 for so long, and the fact that they're like driving next to them now, I just think is insane.
Crazy. That's insane.
And like there's like these photos of them like meeting these other drivers, and now they're like literally on the grid together, which I just find so funny. Yeah, it just shows like how long like Alonso and like Vettel and Kimi, like these people have been driving in F1. Like they're just like, you know, these like pillars of the sport. At 12, Joe and his family moved to Sheffield to go like full on with his motor racing career. He continued to kart from 2012 when he moved to the UK to 2014, in which one of the last karting races he participated in was the FIA Karting World Championship alongside Lando. So they were kind of karting and driving in like F2 and F3 around the same time. And then in 2014, he joined Ferrari's Driver Academy. And then in 2015, he made his F4 debut with Prima Power Team in the Italian F4 Championship, where Joe finished second overall and led the Prima Power Team to a team championship title. He then entered F3 in 2016 with Team Motopark, finishing on the podium twice for the first half of the season, but then he like didn't do as hot the second half of the season. But then seasons 2 and 3 in F3, he rejoined that Prima Power Team and like fared much better in terms of performance, with 5 podiums in 2017 and 6 podiums, 3 poles, and 2 wins in 2018. So he had a pretty good pretty good F3 season. And then after the 2018 F3 season, Zhou joined UNI Virtuosi Racing, where he remained until he got picked up by Alfa Romeo this past fall. And in 2019, his first year in F2, he finished 7th in the championship. And so he was subsequently awarded with the inaugural Antoine Hubert Award for being the highest finishing rookie that season. And I remember I was watching like an interview or something of him talking about receiving that world award that year, and he said it was like obviously an honor and like super emotional because it was like right, you know, it was right after the accident happened. And that they were like around the same age, so they've like driven together and like they were like friends, like he knew him. So I think it's really cool that he got to be awarded with that. I'm sure that was like a big deal and stuff. Yeah. Is that what like happened in like, did it happen that year in 2019 or was it 2018?
I think he passed away in 2019, so it was that soon.
Yeah, so in 2020 he had, in his second year in F2, he had 6 podiums and finished 6th in the championship. And then, so he's like on his way up, you know, in F2. And then in 2021, this most recent season, he had his best season yet, finishing 3rd in the championship behind Piastri from Australia and then Schwartzman from Russia. So Piastri was 1st and Schwartzman was 2nd. And Zhou had 9 podiums, 1 pole, and 4 wins. So going back a few years, Zhou left the Ferrari Racing Academy in 2018 and joined the Renault Sport Academy in 2019, becoming the Renault's dev driver. And then he became their Renault's test driver in 2020. And then when Renault became Alpine, he was still their test driver for this past year.
Okay.
That's right. That's the right timeline, right?
I think so.
So he made like his F1 weekend debut with Alpine this year during a practice session at the Austrian GP, since he's their test driver. Okay. So he got to drive. And there's a video of that on YouTube of him driving that weekend. And he was like super excited about it, obviously. And so after, we're kind of like, now we're like up to the point I feel like everybody knows about, which is after the 2021 F1 season ended, Zhou was announced to be taking the second Alfa Romeo seat for the 2022 season alongside Bottas. And this is kind of where some of the discourse began. I feel like he's not a hugely controversial pick because he's still like, he was like one of the top F2 drivers, but you know, some people thought Piastri, who finished 1st in the 2021 F2 season, was kind of a very strong contender, like even like a walk-on for that open seat because he like did so well in F2. Like he was the number 1 driver that season. And that Zhou was only chosen to be a pay driver, like how some people categorize Mazepin and Stroll. Mm-hmm. And which I feel like is not... Like, Stroll's, like, Mazepin, like, maybe there's some similarities in terms of, like, bringing the money, but Stroll, like, literally, I just feel like he's his own anomaly. Like, he didn't even drive in F2. He literally went from F3 to F1 because of his dad, so I feel like he's his whole own.
Yeah. And it's like,
you know,
his dad owns the team he races on.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he literally just bought the team, essentially.
Like,
so
there's obviously, like, similar dynamics happening. There's like something about like your dad just like buying the F1 team or
yeah, and you skipped an entire like
grade level
of driving.
Yeah.
Anyways,
how does that work? Because this is sort of, but like, don't you have to get a certain number of points on like your super license or whatnot to drive an F1?
I don't know. Maybe you don't when you're dad buys the team.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Rules don't apply.
Clearly F1 rules can be a bit wishy-washy at times. Mm-hmm. But, so after Alfa Romeo stated that they wouldn't be renewing Giovinazzi's contract because he was in that other seat alongside Kimi, but then, you know, Kimi retired and then Bottas was first pick on the Alfa Romeo side, And then Giovinazzi, you know, it was over for him, basically. So when they stated that they wouldn't be renewing his contract and announced a new lineup, Giovinazzi took to Twitter, as people do, to air their grievances. And, you know,
Ooh.
not gonna lie, I've done the same. But,
yeah,
basically,
I remember in high school, Cindy.
Yeah, he said, quote, F1 is emotion, talent, cars, risk, speed. But when money rules, it can be ruthless, end quote. And how I interpret it, I mean, I feel like everybody is coming in with some bias when they're, like, reading this statement. Mm-hmm. But how I interpret it is that Giovinazzi is essentially saying that Vasseur, the Alfa Romeo CEO / team principal, chose money over talent by choosing Zhou over himself. Mm-hmm. Like, by choosing Zhou over Giovinazzi. And I'm like, okay, but first off, Vasseur has explicitly said that obviously Zhou is going to inevitably have, like, an onslaught of Chinese sponsors and fans that would come along with him being the first Chinese driver in F1. Like, it's gonna happen. Mm-hmm. You know? Like, it's like a whole new ball game for them now that they have a driver in the sport. And with the new budget cap, they have more of a chance to compete on equal terms with the bigger teams, especially if Alfa Romeo can kind of, like, reach that closer to that amount of the budget cap with these, like, potential new sponsors coming in. And that factor combined with the fact that Zhou finished third in F2, it just seemed like the right choice because he still performed well.
Yeah.
So he kind of has, like, both things going for him.
Like,
you know?
I mean...
So just, like, to him it made sense.
To Giovinazzi?
To Vasseur it made sense.
Oh, to the team, yeah. I saw an article that said that Alfa Romeo was coming really close to the spending cap. Like, there's a bunch of articles from, like, today or yesterday about how they are going to be, like, really close to the cost cap.
Right.
Which I assume maybe has something to do with, like, extra sponsorship money, maybe. Do you know where Mazepin finished in F2? The year before he moved up?
I can't... I want to say 6, but I literally could be making that up. Because I looked it up yesterday, but I don't remember... F2. He finished 5th.
I mean, so. I feel like 3rd is a podium finish. And he also had a best rookie season, you said, in F2. Like,
yeah, right.
That shows that he can adapt to, like, a new setting well, I feel like. Compared to, like, 5th, like, that's not a podium.
Yeah, and, okay, and then Vasseur kind of had, like, a second reason. I don't remember if he explicitly said this, but it's also kind of like you can just tell. Giovinazzi had 3 seasons with Alfa Romeo to prove his place in F1 or, like, on the team. And in those 3 seasons, he scored less than half the points that Kimi did in the same 3 seasons for the same team. And it's like, yes, Kimi has decades on him.
Yeah.
But Kimi also did significantly better in his first 3 seasons of F1 than Giovinazzi has. And, like, it might be comparing apples to oranges, but I feel like Vasseur just felt like he was given his chance and, like, didn't perform how he needed to in order to secure a 4th season. It's like,
yeah, how
many times are you going to beat a dead horse? Like, if something's not working, then, like, something needs to change, especially when you're bringing in this huge, like, Bottas, this huge, like, driver who's, you know, performed so well consistently. Like, you want someone that's going to, like, compare to him, and, like, Giovinazzi obviously did not prove that he was that person, so they're like, okay, we're gonna try something new, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like 3 seasons is a decent chance. I'd be curious to see how his statistics compared, like, season on season, if he, like, was just doing about the same every season, or if he was improving, or declining.
He was 17th, and 18th.
Yeah. I feel like that's not showing enough improvement.
Like, Kimi wasn't, like, that much...
higher.
That much higher. Honestly, maybe 1 or 2
I mean,
positions higher finished the season a few positions higher at most, but he still scored, like, more than double the points than he did, so... Yeah. I don't know. It's like you can only have, I feel like you can only have so many chances. Like, look what happened to Gasly. He, like, didn't even have a whole season to prove himself at Red Bull. They just, like, threw him out.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
That was... ridiculous. I feel like 3 seasons is reasonable. More than reasonable.
Right, exactly. I agree, and that's why I don't really understand why he felt the need to be so, like, bitter about it and, like, come for this person's, like he was only brought in because of his money and not because he's...
So you think, like, Giovinazzi essentially maybe started or, like, certainly fanned the flames of this idea that he's a paid driver?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'll have to see how he does. But, like, I mean, I think it's undeniable the influence money has on all of the drivers. Like, most of the drivers come from very wealthy families, and, like, other drivers, like, significantly bring in, like, if they're, like, a significant figure in their country and can bring in a lot of sponsors, like Perez or Schumacher or Mazepin, like, you know, I mean, that is a part of the game. But, like, I think that's ridiculous to imply that he's not.
Right.
There's, like, that's the only reason he's in F1, because it doesn't seem like it. It seems like he's a good driver who can adapt to new situations.
And he doesn't even give off, like, he doesn't even have, like, a douchey vibe.
Yeah, Mazepin has a douchey vibe. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, when I'm like, so I'm like, well, you really don't know anything about him, and you're out here, like...
I get that, I'm sure, like, Giovinazzi is obviously, like, very emotional about losing his seat. Like, yeah. I mean, I feel like we can cut him a little slack, that I'm sure that, you know, like, it's easy to sit here and say that, but, like, I do think it's unfair. Like, you have to give him a chance. Yeah. Like, and it is part of the, it's part of the game, but I'm sure he was just...
I'm sure he felt betrayed, but... Yeah.
And it is...
That's why I'm like, when that stuff happens, you just need to get the hell off social media, because nothing is good is gonna come out of, like, tweeting your thoughts or posting about stuff immediately after, when you're, like, feeling that emotional, but...
Yeah.
It's own prerogative, so... he can do what he wants.
I think it's interesting, though, because Alfa Romeo are a Italian team, and Giovinazzi is, like, an Italian driver, so I think... And it seems like that is sort of important to the Italian teams often, like, I don't know, I feel like there is a bit of nationalism in all of this, like, in part, like, the reason maybe they're bringing in Zhou is to get more sponsorship money and support from Chinese fans and whatnot. But, like, for them to, like, throw out the Italian driver, I think is interesting, and, like, that played, I feel like, to Giovinazzi's favor, the fact that he was Italian, like, so, like, they're all sort of, like, existing with all these, like, intertwining things, like, intersections of identity and money, and I don't know, I just think Giovinazzi also benefits from that certain angle to an extent.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
But I think...
Does that make any sense?
Yeah. It's like, if you're not performing well, though, it's, even if you're, you know, an Italian driver driving for an Italian team, it's hard for people to, like, kind of really want to be behind, like, people want to be behind, like, the underdogs or, like, the winners and stuff, like, people who, like, perform well, because it's more exciting, like...
It only takes you so far.
Yeah, so that's basically where we're at with Zhou right now. I'm really interested to see how he's gonna perform next to Bottas, and, like, what kind of relationship we're gonna have, being, like, a seasoned pro with, like, next to the rookie. I think it's just gonna be... That's gonna be so funny, I think.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued to see their relationship, if it's competitive or if there's sort of a mentor kind of vibe, or...
And I'm also really intrigued to see how F1 politics is going to be affected, or if it will be, by having China so heavily involved in the sport now, beyond just, like, a GP, which, like, hasn't even happened in the last few years because of COVID, the Chinese one. So, like, you know, they have skin in the game now, so I think just the influx of fans, you know, from the East alone is kind of going to be, like, insane.
Yeah.
Similar to, like, the whole, like, Drive to Survive influx of, like American fans. I feel like it's gonna be similar to that. So I think F1 is just, like, really gonna explode in popularity, like, not just, like, beyond just the West, like, European centralized fans. And I honestly, I wish the Shanghai GP was happening because I feel like that would be like so crazy for him.
Yeah.
The fans would like literally all be there for him because now that there's a Chinese driver. So I think that like just the whole like atmosphere would be insane. Like similar to like or like Mexico for
I think it's always nice
Perez.
to see a driver race in like a home race and like see how excited the fans are and how excited they are, like, and how like, you know, whether they do better or worse than normal. Like,
right, yeah. Vasseur said he was kind of glad that the Chinese GP wasn't happening because he was like, it takes some pressure off of Zhou's first year driving by not having that home race. And I was like, yes, but also it'd be so exciting to watch, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be cool. Maybe they'll have it next year.
Maybe 2023. Yeah. I hope so. But yeah, that's basically it for me. That's really all all the public information there is on him. It's a lot of his stuff is like in Chinese, honestly. Like his own website is in Chinese, and I'm like, yeah, I can't fucking read any of this. And there's really not a lot of like interviews with him, but I'm sure that's gonna change once the new season starts. Safety car.